Did IQs just drop sharply while I was away?
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Welcome to Popped, where you can learn about and relive some of the best that entertainment has to offer. We'll revisit some of our favorite films that helped influence and shape our lives. Now sit back, strap in, and keep your arms and legs inside the vehicle at all times. And if you have to, take a shot of whiskey to keep from swooning when you hear their voices. Here are your hosts,
Daniel, Ben, and Tanya.
In 1979, the seminal sci-fi horror classic Alien hit theaters. Written by Dan O'Bannon and directed by Ridley Scott, it would forever alter the landscape of the genre. It starred Sigourney Weaver as Ellen Ripley, who would end up as the sole survivor of the crew of the Nostromo after an alien gets on board.
Ooh, Daniel, I think you may have made a typo when you sent us the schedule for the season.
Oh my god, I watched the wrong movie!
I'm getting there, guys. On July 18th, 1986, the sequel to Alien hit theaters. Written and directed by James Cameron, it was surprisingly titled Aliens.
Oh, that's a relief. Aliens features Weaver reprising her role as Ripley, who has awakened after 57 years in cryogenic stasis to a changed world. She suffers debilitating nightmares and PTSD from the horrors she experienced on the Nostromo.
She is approached by Carter J. Burke, a representative of the monolithic Weyland-Yutani Corporation, simply referred to as the Company, to return to LV-426, as they have lost contact with the colonists on that world. Mysteriously.
LV-426? Isn't that the desolate moon where all the unfortunate events began for Ripley?
Yep, that's the one. Ripley initially refuses, but ends up accepting, as she is assured by Burke that she would be going strictly as an advisor. Don't worry, she doesn't bring her cat. The real heavy lifting would be done by the colonial marines that would be accompanying her.
I hear they're tough hombres.
It might not be that bad. Could be just a down transmitter.
Yeah, they're gonna make a movie about a down transmitter, alright. Things don't go according to plan on LV-426, leaving Ripley, the Colonial Marines, the android Bishop, and the young colonist Rebecca, that's Newt to you, fighting to survive until help arrives.
Sounds tense. Gosh, I hope they don't buy it on that rock.
The film was released to critical acclaim and raked in an impressive $183.3 million versus its relatively small budget of $18.5 million, making it one of the highest-grossing films of 1986 worldwide.
While reviewers loved the action, they criticized the intensity of some of the scenes. Cameron truly managed to blend all the elements of science fiction, horror, and suspense flawlessly.
Sigourney Weaver's performance garnered a nomination for an Academy Award for Best Actress, a first for the sci-fi action genre.
Other tour de force performances included Michael Biehn as Hicks, Lance Henriksen as the android Bishop, and the charming and affable everyman, Bill Paxton as Hudson.
Don't you mean Pullman? Hicks? Never mind.
Not to be forgotten is the portrayal of Vasquez by the cinematic chameleon Jeanette Goldstein, whose performance nabbed her a Saturn Award for Best Supporting Actress.
Alright guys, stay frosty. We've got an episode to do.
We're on an express elevator to hell!
Just tell me one thing, Burke. You're going out there to destroy them, right? Not to study, not to bring back, but to wipe them out.
That's the plan. You have my word on it.
All right, I'm in.
Welcome to our second episode of Season 3. By now, our first episode is premiered live on YouTube and should be out for everyone to either watch or listen to. Thank you to everyone who joined us on YouTube to live chat during the episode premiere. Depending on how successful that is, because at this point we haven't done it yet, maybe we'll do it again for this episode. What do you guys think? Yeah?
This sounds like fun to me.
All right.
As indeed.
And for our Patreon subscribers, we're going to be doing a double whammy episode for you this month. And the reason is because last month we got so caught up in all of this learning to edit and put all the stuff on YouTube and edit for audio and blah, 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 blah. I sort of spaced on getting the episode done before the end of the month. Yeah.
Spaced. It's thematic.
Oh, so yeah, we're going to do 2 episodes in one next time to sort of make up for it. So there you go. We were going to have a surprise guest tonight. I was going to surprise you guys, believe it or not. And he couldn't make it last minute. So, oh well. Anyway, Nate, maybe next time. So, that said, it's time to talk about aliens.
This is so nuts. I mean, listen to what you're saying. It's paranoid delusion.
Yeah, aliens. Yeah. I'm trying to think back to when I first saw aliens. And here's kind of my relationship with this film is that I think I saw Aliens before I saw Alien. In fact, I'm pretty certain of it. I think it's because at that time period, it was much harder to watch films that had come out previously unless you saw them in the theater or if you had cable, which I'm not sure if we had the right cable for that at the time. But I know I saw Aliens in the theater. It was like, woohoo, Space Marines, this is awesome, great film. I don't remember it being quite as dark as it is. I think I was just really into the action and what was going on at the time. But I eventually saw Alien later on DVD. Thank you, home video market. That really made a difference in catching up on films and getting right with the world. But I think that might have influenced my decision to put Aliens as opposed to doing Alien first for our season. Now, Tanya, I know this for a fact because you've even brought this up in other episodes of the show, that you are a huge Aliens fan, and I'm curious how you came into it and what's brought you to this point.
Well, Daniel, I will tell you. So Aliens is actually the first one that I saw as well. I saw it in high school after it had been released on VHS at my friend's house. We had a sleepover and we watched it, and oh my gosh, I was instantly just in love with this movie. The adrenaline, the crazy action, Sigourney Weaver as a kick-ass female hero, as a young woman, that was incredibly impressionable for me. And the aliens were great. There was just nothing that I didn't love about it. Alien, I remember when it was released in theaters when I was a kid. I think I was like 7 years old, so obviously that wouldn't have been something that I would have seen. But I remember going to a coffee shop with my parents, and across the street there was a drive-in movie theater and they were playing the movie. I remember being utterly terrified just from the images that I was seeing. But yes, Aliens has a very, very special place in my heart.
Very cool. Yeah. Was it, I don't know, when you watched it, I guess you said you didn't watch it this last time, but I didn't remember it being quite as scary, dark, and creepy. And I think part of the thing that maybe made me realize it is that I had Anita sit next to me, and it's a good thing she had her phone with her because it was really intense and she had to keep looking down at her phone because it was just really that intense, and it made me sort of go, oh wow, yeah. And I'm watching thinking, God, I don't remember it being this intense. Huh. Anyway, was it like that for you when you watch it? Do you feel that tension, or is it at this point when you watch it, do you just sort of like casually watch it and not really get that into it?
Well, it depends. Sometimes I will sit down and watch it. Other times I will throw it on just as background. If I'm doing something around the house, I want to have something on. Aliens gets popped in to my to my DVD player pretty regularly.
Oh boy.
Yeah, no,
It's your comforting background
hundreds
music.
of times I
Right.
have seen this movie. It's terrible. For
People
background,
screaming
but
and dying. Ah!
I'm,
Yeah, you know.
I'm sorry. Apparently, I am
This
learning
relaxes me.
within the past couple minutes that I'm a very dark person. Apparently,
Yeah, we put on not the Hobbit, but the Lord of the Rings, you know, because beautiful music and
Yes.
hobbits and stuff. Ben, I'm curious as to how you got into Alien. What now? Aside from the time where you got lost in the forest and were gone for 10 days, how did aliens come into your life?
Yeah, we weren't going to talk about that part publicly.
Oops.
How aliens came into my life, it all began with Herr Moose. And no, that's not a German elk. I had not seen the first movie. I was 11 when the first movie came out. And parental guidance, when every parent in the world took a look at the trailers and said, no heckin' way my kid's gonna watch that. I was not encouraged to go see the movie, and any trailers I saw, I couldn't really even make out what it was about, so I wasn't all that eager. I didn't come to it until the second one came out, and a friend in high school had this idea. We would get a bunch of us to go in a group, and she would bring her can of mousse with her. And we would come out at the end of the movie, all of us with our hair glued straight up. And with our eyes all freaked out and everything, just to mess with the people going in for the next show.
I am totally gonna steal that idea. I want to do that so bad. That's amazing.
Do you know if Tanya had been in line, she would have been like, "Oh my god, this movie must be so scary."
Yes.
Because
Tanya would have been pressing forward to get in.
You just did viral marketing way back then. They should have paid you for that.
Sadly, we didn't do that. But it was a fun idea that I have remembered in all of the mumbly years since. It's even the memory of thinking about it is just tons of fun. That was when I first came to the series, and I did go and see Aliens, and oh yeah, it was scary, it was startling, and it was neat sci-fi in space. I agree with you 100%, Daniel. It did not hit me as a teenager how dark this was. It hit me as an adult who has a child.
Yeah, it's weird, right?
This is dark and scary as bleep.
Are we just more desensitized to it when we're younger because it's just film violence and the tension maybe doesn't affect us as much? I think I don't have children that would where that would be an issue for me, but having a girlfriend who does not really enjoy jump scares and horror films, that sort of hit me last night. And maybe that's what it is.
Well, there's kind of a magical age, when we're really young, everything is bigger than us, so everything is scary. When we're teenagers, we're invincible. We're immortal. Nothing can hurt us. So nothing is scary. There are things that can be startling, but they're not scary. Then when we are adults, we learn this immortality was an illusion. Yeah. And we return to understanding fear.
Yeah, when you stand up and your back hurts, or you go off of a step wrong, and it's like then you can't walk for a week. Yeah, you start to realize what mortality is.
Your whole life flashes before your eyes, like
you sneeze wrong and you can't move your neck for a week.
So, all right. So I think that's a good take on where we all sat with Aliens, but then and now. Mm-hmm. And I do, especially after these last few viewings, think that this is one of the more intense horror films and science fiction crossovers. It crossovers a lot of different things, but I think those are the two big ones. And there's some good themes in this film, but I'm curious what you guys think. But I felt like one of the overlying themes was motherhood and parenthood. but more specifically motherhood. And they juxtapose the queen, who is obviously the mother of all of her brood, and Ellen Ripley, who's lost her child because she had been in stasis for 57 years, and then she sort of adopts the Newt, the Carrie Henn character, and it becomes very protective of her. I thought that kind of was an overlying theme for me. Did you guys find that as a theme, or did you find something else?
Well, definitely that. I would call this movie Tale of Two Moms is really what it is. Particularly that final battle scene. I think what really drives it home is when she's in her loader, and she comes out of the door opens and she says, "Get away from her, you bitch." I remember the first time seeing that movie, me and my friend just went, oh, like it was the coolest smackdown. And that's when you really get the sense, like, oh my gosh, this is two mama bears duking it out for their kids. So, I mean, that was obviously the main theme. There were others for me too, but that was the big one.
You know that line too, which is in the trivia notes that we've got for later, but I think since you brought it up now, it's really appropriate to say it. She had one take on that. They were running out of time, running out of money, and she got one take to say it, and she thought she screwed it up.
Oh, no, it's perfect.
Turned out to be one of the more perfect lines in the
I
film.
think she did great. I saw no flaw with it.
Ben, did you catch any other themes by the way? I'm sorry, you were going to finish saying something there, and then it lagged.
No, I was only going to say, and I remember specifically the entire audience went bananas when she delivered that line.
Right.
And I fully agree. It was a spectacular moment in the film. As for any other themes, definitely the motherhood theme was in there. One underlying theme I saw throughout the entire film is, you ignorant dipheads, effing listen to the woman. And not just at the beginning of the film in the corporate meeting, and not
how many times did she warn them?
Oh, it happened throughout the movie, and then it happened with Newt. People wouldn't listen to what Newt was telling them.
Why don't you put her in charge?
I don't know, she's been surviving here for several weeks. Our squad of Marines got their asses kicked in under 24 hours. Maybe we should put her in charge.
Yeah.
People kept dismissing the females, and they were right throughout the entire film.
Except for Hicks. Hicks listened. Hicks actually repeats her when he reluctantly takes charge. There's a good moment in the film because, she points out he's the guy left that, by rank is still in charge here. And then, of course, she drops her famous line.
I say we take off and nuke the entire site from orbit. It's the only way to be sure.
Which people misquote all the time. And they also attribute it to Hicks, where Hicks is just repeating her.
I say we take off, nuke the site from orbit. It's the only way to be sure.
So, but it shows you that Hicks listens.
Yeah.
And he gets to live.
That's
at least
right.
for this film. So.
All right, I was gonna say I just must be a bad woman, because I don't even know that I connected that it was not listening to her because she was female. For me, I saw it in a broader scale. There was this huge juxtaposition between the powerful and the peons, as you were, or as you wish to say. You have the company, which is obviously this big umbrella that controls so much of what's going on in this universe that we live in. I'm sure they have a huge hand, not just in the military and pharmaceuticals, whatever else they do, but also in government and buying off politicians and things of that nature. But the military is expendable. The company is all-knowing, and it really juxtaposes itself well when you see the Sulaco, and it's just so massive. It is this monolithic thing, holds just tiny little people. And I know that there are technical reasons why that is, but visually and emotionally, it really gives you the sense that the company sees people as small completely.
Well, I think you're
Yeah.
100% correct, but that's also the upfront thing that you're supposed to get from what you're watching. I think what Ben was talking about was more subtext, and the subtext is you're not listening to the woman and this happens.
Yeah.
But up front, it's yes, all of these other things are very important notes as to why things are happening. I mean, the movie structure, it's just like this perfect blend of corporate distrust and epic gun battles, right? And it sets the perfect backdrop for like all these rapid one-liners, in the back and forth. I gotta say, I love the way this film is structured and how it was all interweaved. How they take these grunts and they juxtapose them with these other people. I think it's really interesting too how they put the actors through basic training, right? All of them got basic training except for Hicks, Michael Biehn, and it wasn't his fault. It was because James Remar was originally cast in the role, and he went through the basic training, but he also had a severe drug problem at the time, so he ended up being nixed, and they brought Michael Biehn in at the last minute. So they allowed them to customize their gear and do all these things. So they really were like a tight unit because they had been in basic training together. Ripley and Newt and the civilian cast, including what's his name, Carter Burke, Paul Reiser. It takes me a second to think. Paul Reiser, I don't know why, but they didn't go through that training, and it created an even bigger gap between them, which is very obvious when you're watching the film. Stuff like that I think is really cool. But where I was going to go before you guys actually got me derailed, because that was a very good point, Tanya, is I wanted to talk about some carryover from the first film, since we're obviously not talking about the first film for the most part. There is a lot of carryover, and if you've seen Aliens, we're going to assume that you've seen Alien, although we hadn't.
None of us had.
And I don't think you have to. I think you get enough of the story in the text of what's going on in this film, that you can get away without watching Alien. I think it would be a bad idea to not watch it, though, because it really is a fantastic, wonderful film, directed by the same guy who did Blade Runner, Ridley Scott.
Mm-hmm.
And it's creeptastic. It's a little slower paced, but I don't know. Some of the things that carried over, I'm going to point out one of the things, and if you guys have something you want to talk about that carried over from the first film besides the aliens, then go ahead. But for me, the one thing that really played out really well in this film was Ripley's distrust of androids or synthetic life units. In the first film, you had Ash, who ends up betraying the space crew, and in this film, she runs into Bishop when he pulls the knife trick, and then he bleeds a little, and she sees the white blood and realizes it's an android aboard, and it causes a big issue for her. And I really liked the way that sort of worked into this film and was a callback to the previous film. So for you guys, was there a callback that you noticed or something that carried over from the first film that really impressed you?
The airlock. That was how she dispatched the alien in both films. And that just goes to show that it is undefeatable, except to just flush it out into a vacuum.
Well, why didn't she just get out the old Kirby? Oh, not that kind of vacuum?
I think a slightly different kind of vacuum.
No, not that kind of vacuum.
Gotcha.
A little bit bigger scale.
Yeah. Anyway, anything you noticed that carried over, Ben, from Alien to Aliens, besides the aliens?
Aside from the aliens and the synthetic humans, I didn't notice anything in particular. I mean, aside from also, the little tribute to her cat at the beginning of the film here.
Jonesy!
That's right, Jonesy.
Well, there was the fact that they were in they were on the same rock where they found the alien ship. And interestingly, I don't know if you guys saw the restored version that has the deleted scenes put back into it. I don't know if you watched that, because that's the version I have.
I don't
and
know.
For Aliens?
For Aliens, yeah. Because
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
so if you're watching the theatrical cut, you don't see aliens for, I think it's almost a full hour of the film, right? It's just all this build to eventually this clash with aliens. If you watch the version I have, they reinsert where Newt's family goes to the ship, and they go into the ship, and when they come back out, the father has a face hugger on his face, but that's the only alien you see for the first hour.
Okay, yes, that's the version that I saw this time.
Okay, cool. So there's a callback there, is that you get to see the ship that was where all of this started from the first film. So, I mean, it's not super important, but I do like that they stayed true to the first film and carried it over into this one.
And genuinely incorporated elements from the first, yes.
Yeah. Well, definitely. And then her nightmare, where she has the chest burster. That's also a callback.
That was such a rude opening to the action.
Right?
Man.
Yeah, that was the moment where Anita was like, "Oh, what? Oh no!" Phone came out. So, let's see. Is there anything else you guys wanted to say before I move on to my next kind of little thing here? They had to do that? No, I hear crickets. No. Trust me, crickets get edited in when that happens.
Speaking of the ship, and this really doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the carryover because you've already discussed that, but if you have not seen Prometheus, I don't know if either of you have or any of our listeners
It's on
have.
my list. It's on my list.
Definitely watch it. It gives you so much more context and background for this civilization, and it's just mind-blowingly beautifully done by Ridley Scott. He really did a great leap into the mythology, and it was really beautiful, so you should check it out.
I really appreciated Prometheus.
Very cool. So you were talking about Sulaco earlier. One of the things I noticed when I was watching it last night is that it must have really influenced the designers of the Babylon 5 ships. Did you notice that when you're watching it go by and there's those long protruding antennas on the front and the weird boxy construction?
The shape of it.
Yeah, I kept seeing Babylon 5 and was like, I think there's some people were influenced by maybe aliens. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway.
Science fiction writers influenced by one another? That never happens.
Nah. Let's talk about cast, supporting cast, etc. Sigourney Weaver, this is a seminal role for her. And she initially did not want to repeat the role. And it took some convincing to get her onto this cast. And part of it was, the motherhood story and how that was going to play in. And apparently, also in the trivia that I'm going to bring up now, she was really pissed off because they were going to remove the whole daughter dying thing. And she wanted that kept in. So she fought for that, and they kept it.
I'm glad she did, because I mean that added a strong dimension to the entire movie.
Yeah, and Tanya spoke about this a little bit earlier. Sigourney Weaver was just really a badass through this film. I like though that she starts off with all the severe PTSD, and she's struggling to just even cope and to get through her days. She's taken like this basic job. It's probably the only thing she could get. I think Burke brings that up to her. It's probably the only job you could get. Yeah, but she is she's broken, and she doesn't even want to go to this colony, and she's pissed off about it. But she gets assured and lied to by Liar McLiarson, Lie McLangface, that they're going to go there and destroy the aliens, and she's on board. But because of the colonists have gone missing, right? So this is her like going, oh no, these people, we've got to do something to help these people. Once again, selflessness, this person who's broken and going through all this trauma rises above that to go help other people. And I really found that to be her core strength, is that she was always trying to help. She cared. But the way they turn this on its heel is that she's strong, and she finds that strength and rises above it and really does something with it. Whereas the people around her, some of them are full of bravado. You think they're strong, but in the moment of the crisis, they completely crack. Which brings us to supporting cast. But before we get to supporting cast, I want to hear you guys' take on Sigourney Weaver in this role, what you thought of her. Tanya, I know you got a pretty strong opinion, so we're going to go to Ben first and let him pop that over to you when he's ready.
My take on Ellen Ripley is one of the baddest ass action heroes of all time. I remember I was watching this with my brother Andy, and turned to him and commented, there was another female action hero in the 80s who spent some time buffing herself up and getting all grizzled and rough looking and super tough and still isn't even in the same league as Ripley.
Sarah Connor?
Sorry?
Are you talking about Sarah Connor?
Maybe.
Uh-huh. I was sure it wasn't Monique from Better Off Dead, but
no, not Monique. Yeah, Sarah Connor, and I have absolutely nothing against Linda Hamilton. It's just that with everything that she did to make herself tougher, Ellen Ripley is just untouchable as the tough badass. And I think it's just the character that came from within. You're muted, Daniel.
I think making her relatable was one of the more important factors in her strength, because when you can't relate to a character, it doesn't matter how strong they are, especially when you feel like they're invulnerable and nothing can touch them. You never get the feeling in this film that anyone is invulnerable. Even the biggest badass on the team, which was another woman, by the way, Vasquez. They're vulnerable. They have those moments. Oh, she's a great character. But if you juxtapose that with modern day things, and I hate to pick on Star Wars, but let's look at The Force Awakens and the Rey character. There's just none of that there, and they could have. It's such a missed opportunity because they had a good actress and they had a good idea, but they just didn't connect the character with the audience. Yeah. Tanya, what do you think when you think about Ellen Ripley, Sigourney Weaver, and the way they made this character work? How do you feel about that? Because I know you've got some ammunition right there.
I have a lot of thoughts. So, first off, before I forget, I wanted to go back to what you said about when Ripley decides to go on this mission back to LV 426. She decides to go also because she just woke up from another one of her nightmares. And I think that she realized that the only way she was going to be able to move past it was to face it again. So I think there was some selflessness in what she did, but it was also self-care. I think it was something that she had to do.
See, I remember the nightmare and her waking up and making the decision, but I don't think I connected it, so that's a good point.
Thank you very much. I can be astute at times, have my moments. But Sigourney Weaver is just amazing as an actress. She's done so many phenomenal movies. I think there are very few people who could have pulled off this role in the way that she did. I find it interesting that both of you really commented on how amazing Ripley was. Did you know that she was written to be a man? Dun, dun, dun.
Wait, in the original film?
Yep.
Okay.
He was written to be a man, and they ended up just casting a woman. They're like, well, why can't it just be a woman?
There's no reason.
So, Hollywood has a problem. I'm just gonna say it because if you so The Force Awakens, if they had written Rey as an actual human being, as opposed to like she's a girl, like every lens that they filter most female action heroines through is womanness first, and nothing about the nuance of their personality. They're not fleshed out in the same way that a lot of male characters are, and I think that's one reason why Ripley is so impactful still all these years later. So just a fun fact.
Interesting. Yeah, I would agree with that. And I'm thinking of other things. What you did, there's a reason there's a silence there, is because now I'm starting to think of other films where that's true. And I started to think, well, DC does that, but then I thought, well, they also do that with their male heroes too. So, I guess that's not a good example. Anyway, very good points there. Supporting cast. This film, I think its strength is, obviously, I'm not going to downplay Ripley at all, because she is the core, she's the heart of this film. But the strength of this film, I feel like it lies in the supporting cast, in the fact that they did it right. You give a damn about all these people. You get that sense of camaraderie between them, and that they belong together, and it makes you care when they go in, and you start to get worried for them, because you don't want anybody to die, right? You don't want anybody to get killed in there. And you watch the ineptitude of Gorman as he's leading these guys into this place, and suddenly realizes, oh, you can't use your bullets. So he takes their ammunition away, and it's incredible. Anyway, in the supporting cast are some really good performances. Jeanette Goldstein, which is one of them. We talked about her as Vasquez. She's a true chameleon, and we'll talk more about her later on, as she's our I know that dude, right? We're going to talk about her later on. There were some other people. I think I mentioned earlier that Michael Biehn was a last-minute addition because of James Remar. There are 2 shots of the back of James Remar that make it into the film, and it's just because he's walking away, and you can't tell it's not Hicks. It doesn't matter, right? Lance Henriksen, the android. So for me, he embodied android. He had this otherworldly presence about him. His voice pattern, his facial expression, all of it told me, I'm not human. Right? How about you guys? How did you feel about Lance Henriksen's performance?
Go ahead, Ben.
I thought he was absolutely brilliant in delivering exactly what you said. I'm not exactly human. I'm something else. It was absolutely fantastic. There was not a single moment when he didn't feel a little bit different. But not so glaringly different that they were, trying to ram it down my throat. All these actors I've known for such a long time without any wrinkles, especially Lance Henriksen.
Right.
This was before he had his what I think of as his signature face. It was still definitely him. But he was the one I kept most thinking to myself, he was just a baby. But yes, absolutely brilliant as the synthetic human.
Tanya, how about Lance Henriksen for you?
Oh, I've always loved the actor, and I'm sure I love him because of Aliens. I'm sure that's where that started. But his performance was so great. It was very removed, but still you felt this emotionality for him. And he also did a great job in the beginning with sowing doubt in the viewers' minds with just little expressions or little emotions. It wasn't even anything that was in the script. It was just the way that he delivered the line or moved a certain way. You're like, oh wait, are you bad? Like, he really did a phenomenal job.
And did you find yourself when you're watching it, because I noticed this when I was watching it was it the night before last or last night? I can't remember when I watched it. But as I was watching him, and Ripley, knocks the tray out of his hand, and she every time she gets a chance, she just like shuts him down. Even though he wasn't showing a lot of human emotion, he was doing something that was making me like empathize with him, and I kept feeling like, oh, come on, Bishop, show her, and when he finally gains her trust and respect, it's like, oh yeah, oh no. Right?
Yeah.
I remember that sense of relief when he finally gained her respect and trust, and I felt like that was another reason that character and that supporting role was so good in this particular film. Yeah.
I remember turning to Andy at one point and saying, you know what? It just hit me. Before Data, there was Bishop.
I would have liked Bishop far more than Data, but
Yeah.
that's just me.
Yeah.
Nope, nothing against Brent Spiner. Great guy.
As
great
much as I love Star Trek in general and Data in particular, Bishop did not feel mechanical.
True.
Whereas many of Data's movements were exaggerated to look mechanical.
I'm just glad they didn't call him Data.
But technically, if you do want to get technical, Data was mechanical, and Bishop was not. Bishop had like human-looking ears and stuff. Like he had like little circuits here and there, but generally he was a humanoid android.
Yeah.
And I dig that a little bit more than the more mechanical android.
Yeah, I agree. I would have to say, if he had so many parts in him that were, reliant on fluids, this, that, and the other, I guess would be one of my little criticisms. That when he gets ripped in half and all those fluids are gone, he's still operable. I mean, not really slowed down much. I can't walk, but I can grab the kid, we'll do this, grab the gate. I can talk. It's a small gripe, but anyway.
Well, I mean, it was written by James Cameron, right?
Yeah. Remember when they ripped Leo in half and he's hanging on the
where
iceberg?
You need a half a body to still be dangerous.
And she's like, "Get off that iceberg." Anyway, Michael Biehn. So he obviously replaced James Remar. Didn't go through the basic training, but he fit in really well. I love how he's just sort of a guy, just in there, and then he's thrust into a leadership position. And I don't know about you guys, but me, you put Michael Biehn in something, and I'm watching. There's something about this guy that I want to watch. I'm invested. He has a delivery. He has a likableness to him, even when he's the dirty down Ringo in Tombstone, right?
Yes.
He's just one of those guys who oozes charisma on the screen. What do you guys think of Michael Biehn?
Charisma is the perfect word for him. He just does have that thing where you want to watch. And he does Boy Next Door, good old guy, very well. And he does really nasty, dastardly, vile person character really well. He's a good actor, and he was a great fit for Ripley's counterpart as well. I thought that their chemistry was really, really good.
Right. Speaking of Sarah Connor earlier, he was her counterpart in the first Terminator film. So there's sort of a theme.
I made that comment when I was watching it with Andy. I was like, wait, he got to act with both of the badass female action heroes from the 80s.
That's right. It's this one chance where you got to say, I'm your Huckleberry. Anyway, speaking of Tombstone, let's talk about a crossover character who was also in that and the Terminator, Bill Paxton.
Yes.
Now, here's a person that I fought going, God, we really should make him our I know that dude, because we could do an entire episode on Bill Paxton alone. He's just one of those guys. He's, as was said in the intro, he's the everyman.
This
But
is what we call foreshadowing, boys and girls.
he's so likable. And even when he's playing the jerk older brother in Weird Science, he's just this likable
He has a
thing
name,
about him.
man.
Right. But I mean, he's been in so many things like Aliens, Tombstone, Near Dark, which also has Lance Henriksen and Jeanette Goldstein, right? Titanic, which has Jeanette Goldstein. Yeah, she's the Irish mother down in Steerage. He was in Apollo 13. He's in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And one of my favorite things about Bill Paxton is sort of where he got his start. Do you guys know this?
No.
He was an amateur film director, and a friend of his, I'm going to tie in Babylon 5 here, Bill Mumy, was in a band called Barnes and Barnes, and they needed to do a video, which Bill Paxton shot and was starred in for Fish Heads.
Oh my goodness, really?
If you watch the Fish Heads video, it's a very young Bill Paxton wandering around in the film.
Holy crap.
Wow. I may have to go and watch that now.
I thought I'd just throw that in here. But anyway, Bill Paxton died very recently, and I remember hearing of his passing going, no, God, here's one of those people that you think, if I met that guy, I know he'd be cool. I just know he'd be cool. And yeah, it's very sad. He had a surgery, I want to say within the last couple of years here, and I think at the post-op he had a stroke, and that was it. And there were a lot of celebrity tributes for him. He was a very, very well-liked man. But what do you guys think of when you think of Bill Paxton besides game over, man?
Are you kidding? Game over is what I literally call this movie. And to this day, no one I have said that to has failed to know what movie I was referring to.
God, I think that's a perfect title for the film. It literally explains what happens in the film for everybody.
Pretty much. Another thing I think of immediately. Two things I think of immediately when I think about Bill Paxton. Chet from Weird Science.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, my brother was terrified when I was heading out to basic training. He was so scared I was going to come back like Chet.
You mentioned that in another episode, and I remembered that. Yes. That's great.
Yep. So I love Chet from Weird Science, but also sleazy car salesman from True Lies.
Yeah.
The spy movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jamie Lee Curtis, and Bill Paxton is another case where the supporting cast just enhances the movie so brilliantly.
Truth. Just as an aside, when you told that story before, not long after I had said something and you zinged me really good, and I said, maybe you did turn into Chet.
I kind of almost remember that moment.
Right?
I don't remember the context, but I remember that moment.
Yeah, it was one of my better ones. Usually you got the good ones. That was one where I actually got you.
That is a good one.
Tanya, Bill Paxton, let's hear it.
Oh my goodness. He was just such a great, I didn't know him personally. He seemed like such a great man. You watch him on screen and you're just happy. Even if he's a jerk, like in True Lies, as like a 10-year-old boy. And you're still laughing, and he was just hilarious. He threw himself into his characters, and it was just fun and funny and bigger than life. And it was a very sad loss.
Yeah.
It's a bummer.
In this film, he was really concerned at first that people would not like his character and think he was too whiny, because he's the guy that breaks, and like, why'd you put her in charge? And he also has some of the best lines.
Hey, maybe you haven't been keeping up on current events, but we just got our asses kicked, pal.
his breakdown's actually believable. I like that they took a character who was full of bravado. Look, we got all these weapons. We got, he's going listing off all the ammunition and the arsenal he has. And I mean, I'm not saying he was a coward. I don't think he was a coward, but I would say that there are a lot of people in this world that are chicken hawks when it comes to this sort of thing. They like to talk about war. They like to talk about guns and all these sort of things. But when the fit hits the shan, they're the first ones that fold, right?
Sort of riding a line there, aren't you?
Right? Riding the line. Hey, I'm going to make it work. But that's something that really interested me, is that they actually broke this character down and put him in that situation. I think it's great because his manicness really brings home Hicks' calmness and Ripley's leadership ability to also bring him back down. And it's a very important component of the relationship between those characters that just makes takes this whole story a step up above what we're used to seeing in action films, where everybody's capable, oh, we just lost, so-and-so, and it's like, we'll go on, we'll soldier on. No, in this one, somebody dies, a bunch of people die, it's like, oh my God, what's happening? It's great.
Yeah. And his comic relief always came at the perfect moment when the audience really needed a moment just to kind of breathe and decompress. He was right there with like a zingy one-liner. So that was very convenient.
That comic relief is so needed in this film because, as I said, rewatching it again last night, despite how many times I'd seen it before, I started to realize how freaking dark this movie is. The tension in this film is, there's more tension in this film than like the hardest gummy bear, right? I'm sitting there like, gritting my teeth. Oh, this gummy bear won't break. The sentry guns, to me, mark one of the big moments of tension where you really get a sense of the numbers of the aliens. They set these guns out. They've got limited ammunition, I think 500 rounds or something, and they burn through those rounds, killing all these aliens quickly. And they get down to 10 before the aliens give up. And it's such a, wow. If those last 10 had fired and they kept coming, they're done. They're done right there. I felt that was a brilliant addition to the story. And I understand it in one of the versions, the sentry guns are cut out entirely. So that's a mistake.
Yeah.
What moments what moments stuck out for you guys that you felt were indicative of the level of tension in the film that really made that you really noticed because, now you're chewing on that gummy bear?
The motion sensors.
Oh yeah.
37 years later, that sound is so distinctive.
Indeed.
I only have to hear it once, and I'm transported. And I'm seeing the creepy crawlies coming through the plenum space between the ceiling and the roof. And the moment when I think it's Hudson, Bill Paxton's character, who says, what does he say? 6 meters. And Hicks says, that can't be. That's inside the room.
Right.
That's 6 meters, man.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I think Hicks tells him, well, you're reading it wrong. I turned to Andy and I said, God damn it, I may not be the smartest, but I can read the number 6.
Tanya, did you have a moment like that? I mean, I think he's right. That definitely was a tension marker. It was
sure.
That was a very tough gummy bear.
Yes. And then you also have Vasquez you have that time crunch because they're trying to, not laser through the door, but cut through the door so they can escape out where they're at. So it really added that extra, oh my God, hurry up. But Newt, when she's in the water, and then you're that moment of not knowing what's there, because water's always a little bit creepy.
Right. Especially water you can't see under.
Yes. And you're alone in this weird cagey underground thing. It's very scary. Also the egg room when she first goes in and
when
she
it starts
sees
opening.
Well, once it starts opening, that's almost like a release, because you're like, okay, now something's happened. Does that tension build up before that standoff, and she's getting a sense of everything that's around, and they spend so much time, you see the aliens off to the side, you see panning up to this queen, which is just, oh my god, it's so well done, it's so beautifully shot. The one thing that I don't think that we have discussed that I think is crucial to the success of Alien and Aliens and the entire franchise is the alien itself. These xenomorphs were so beautifully designed by H.R. Giger.
There was aliens?
Yes, there were aliens. But without that vision, without that visual, that truly otherworldly and honestly alien movies would not have the same impact, in my opinion. I think visually that really made them something different, and if the alien had been a different design, I don't know that I would have liked these films as much. Honestly,
the design and the aliens themselves are creepy, all get out creepy, because they are very insectoid, right? And most people have an innate fear of insects or spiders or pretty much insects. But the queen with the big egg sac, the way that pretty much everything on them is almost a weapon.
Yeah, they're very Heidi. Yeah. They're also very sexualized too. Like the face hugger with the down the, like everything is, there's a lot of sexual innuendo.
I see Ben and I both have our eyebrows raised. Tanya?
I think we might understand
what are they putting in your water over there?
Ways.
I'm just saying.
Things are interesting over at the old Holstrom household.
No, they're actually not interesting at all.
So wait, Tanya, I want to make sure I understand. Are you saying that this movie would not have been the same if instead of H.R. Giger's aliens, we had Alf?
Or E.T.?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Or
yes.
E.T. But yeah, it definitely would have been so very different.
Yes.
I remember
see E.T. with an extra set of jaws.
Visuals of cinema.
Oh, it sure did.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know that, dude.
Gee,
only our dude is exactly who we were just talking about, Jeanette Goldstein.
Yay.
Jeanette Goldstein, she's one of those people, and I know who she is because after Aliens, I had to know who the actress was that played the part, and that's who I kind of how I watch movies. When I see faces, I want to know who they are and what else they've been in, because I like to link films, and there's a lot of people in this film who link up in other things. Her being in Near Dark with Bill Paxton and Lance Henriksen, so she was the mommy vampire, if you remember that. But Jeanette Goldstein is a complete chameleon, and she had been on a lot of things that I didn't realize I'd seen her. I looked right at her and didn't make the connection, because Vasquez is such a seminal, like, it's such a standout character, but in other roles she almost disappears into it. Interestingly enough, that line in the film, when she heard there was aliens, she thought they meant illegal aliens, so she signed up.
Man.
Well, when she made that mistake when she first showed up, dressed as a migrant worker, because she wasn't sure what the role called for.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, pretty crazy. She was born, or I guess she or maybe still lives in Beverly Hills. She was raised there. So,
okay.
Not a ganger by any means, but living in LA, all you have to do is drive, 7-8 blocks and you're in that neighborhood. So she probably seen it, had some idea of what it was. I know she studied for the role by watching a lot of videos of gangs and interviews with gang members, which helped her. But she's been in a lot of things. And before I talk about, anything else, I want to hear your history with her. Ben, what do you know her from, or do you remember her from, if you remember her?
I remember her from this movie. I remember specifically as I was rewatching it with my brother, I turned to him and I said, "Did she ever do anything else?" And he said something we like to say to one another. He's like, "If only we had a device that we could reference to look up information." So he looked her up and said, "Dude, she's been in like almost everything." And it turns out, yeah, she's been in a ton of stuff that I've seen, but I did not realize it was her.
Right? And imagine those poor people back in 1986 going, "I wonder if she's been in anything else." They're like, "Oh, hold on, I got all my encyclopedias here." There we go. Jeanette Goldstein. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, yeah. She was in Terminator. She was the mom. Tanya, where do you remember her from? Or do you remember her?
Well, definitely from Aliens. I didn't realize until way later she was in anything else. She's such a chameleon. And I do think that when I watched Terminator, because she was in the second one, right? Terminator 2. Was it the second one that she was in? Yes, it was, because she had the little thing,
right through the head.
Yeah.
While she's on the phone, "John, your mother is dead," or whoever it was. Was it his aunt?
Wolfie's fine.
Who was she?
Yeah,
to him in the film?
I believe she was an aunt or something like that. Yeah. But I do remember.
Sarah Connor is his mom, but it's like he says something to him like, "Your family is dead" or something like that, because he knows the Terminator's there. Sorry, Tanya, go ahead.
Oh, no, you're fine. But I do remember watching Terminator 2, actually probably within the past 10 years. And I remember looking at her eyes and going, "Oh, that kid?" Like, I sort of had that moment of recognition. I was like, "Holy crap." And then someone had mentioned to me that she was also in Titanic, that she was the Irish mother in Titanic.
She was.
And I was like, wow, James Cameron really likes to have Jeanette Goldstein in his films. And why wouldn't he? Because she is just this amazing character actress. Phenomenal.
Yeah. We need someone who can play this role, but nobody's good. Nobody can do it. I know somebody.
Right.
Yep.
She is an interesting person. She's been in a lot of things that I've seen. And because Aliens was what really kind of made me recognize her and be like, "Oh, who is this actress?" That made me go on the wild goose chase of, "Oh, she's been in this, she's been in this, she's been in this." A lot of things I've seen her in, I had no idea I'd seen her. And that's a testament to her ability to be a chameleon and blend into her roles. Here's just a couple of things. Max Headroom, Aliens Near Dark, Lethal Weapon 2, Terminator 2 Judgment Day, MacGyver, Star Trek Generations, LA Law, Titanic, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, Strong Medicine, Babylon 5 tie-in because Dr. Stephen Franklin, Richard Biggs, was on Strong Medicine, and 6 Feet Under, a show that I watched from cover to cover. A wonderful film, wonderful series. And Alias. Those are all things that I could have seen her in. She's done some video game work. But what's really cool about Jeanette Goldstein is what she's done with herself since then. She's not really doing a lot of acting anymore. She opened up a shop, a bra shop, called, and it's for larger breasts, and it's called The Alphabet Begins at D.
Huh.
Good for her.
Neat
There's a
idea.
dire need for good bras in the world.
Absolutely. And I have no problem plugging it, so I'm going to find a link and put it right over here so you can go check out her shop, especially if you need bras bigger than D. More power to you. And Jeanette Goldstein. Let's give her a hand. Not a golf clap, but I'm going to put in a nice clapping sound effect for that.
Okay.
Yeah. We need to do something else right now, guys. We need to get to poppin'. Yeah. Yeah, all right. So the people listening to this podcast right now have no idea that we're disco dancing. And if you're listening, You're lucky. Because
Yes.
you didn't have to see that. But anyway,
We have spared you the horror.
right? The horror.
Exactly.
Horror. Another great film.
Yes.
Anyway, let's see. Why don't we start off with Ben, and then we'll go to me, because I think Tanya's rating is going to be the big surprise, right? So, Ben, how many pops do you give this film? We're on a timer here, buddy.
I almost went. I almost want to say a different number because I know I give this number of pops a whole lot, and I enjoy it every time. It creeps me out every time. It's for me. This is a 5 pop.
Excellent. Excellent, excellent. 5 pops from me. The supporting cast sets the gold standard for supporting cast. Your lead character, Ellen Ripley, is one of, if not the strongest female character that's ever been written for a film. And if you write her like that, if you're going to write the character like that, people are going to watch. People will not balk. That's how you do it. There is your template. You can change things here and there, but now do you understand? And the mood, the tension, really, my only critique that I could see watching this today was there was one special effects shot that looked kind of janky, and it was the drop ship going into the atmosphere. That's all. That's the only criticism I had visually watching this film. It stands the test of time. It is a wonderful film. Tanya.
Well, big surprise. This gets 5 pops from me. If I could give it 5 million pops, it would get 5 million pops. And gold standard is really the perfect word that you just used, Daniel. Like, this movie, it is the gold standard of sci-fi horror action film. It was made almost 40 years ago. Many films have tried and failed to be as good as this movie in the genre. I honestly don't know if it's possible, and I think it's because they're trying to, in a weird way, be aliens, but it's been done. Like, if you want to do something better or try to do something better, you have to do something different. That's a problem. Yeah. But perfect from beginning to end. The acting was amazing. The visuals were amazing. I have nothing but praise for this movie.
Wonderful.
And Tanya's our hardest grader, folks.
She really is.
I am.
And thanks for tuning in and checking us out. If you are watching us on YouTube, wonderful. If you're listening to us on one of your favorite podcatchers, we're in all of those places. We're on all the socials. You can send us an email if you want to contact us directly. I'm Daniel at poppodcast.com. There's Ben at poppodcast.com and Tanya at poppodcast.com, which is the suffix of our website, poppodcast.com. So you can find us anywhere. You can find all of our old episodes there. We have a swag shop that you can go to and buy some swag.
Like a nifty hat.
Yeah, you can get a hat. We just put up some cool new toon pictures of us, which actually became part of our banner drop back for our Facebook page. And really hope to, we're not sure how this live chat thing's going to go for the video for Blade Runner, but if it goes well, hopefully we'll do one for this. And we just want to thank you for being here and checking out Pop. Please like, subscribe, comment, share. It all matters. Every single one of those things matters. And keep track of them, because they might just get you something as time goes by here. You never know.
Speaking of comments, I would love to know, for people who are able to comment either on Facebook or on YouTube, I want to know if you think there is a better sci-fi action movie than Aliens. I'm curious. I would love to know that. So write it in the comments, and if I haven't seen it, I'm going to check it out. Yep. I'm excited.
You're going to get Starship Trooper flamed, I guarantee you.
That movie was good. It was good. It was. Yeah. It made a fun use of like crazy propagandist.
Oh man, I can see those fingers flying out. Good.
It was
What do you mean good?
It was good.
And with that, we're off and we're leaving as well.